Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode, I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favourite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film would become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 2. Hello, Podsters or Podderoonies if you prefer. We are back again for part 2, talking Frankenstein movies. This is the part of the show, as you probably know, if you're an avid listener of the podcast, it's where I have a look at your Instagram responses from the previous episode. Talking will be hard from now on. Bear with us. Might require lots of editing, I don't know. And that previous episode was on Sam Raimi movies, and just the one response this time from Ellie Nora, the other half, the girlfriend, who went with Spider-Man, Sam Raimi's second foray into superhero movies. Yeah, I watched that film with her recently. It's still pretty good. I really love that, actually. A great first proper adaptation of Spider-Man. But Parker, I am very intrigued. What is your Sam Raimi choice for you?
Okay, I'm going to give two answers because growing up, I didn't watch any of his early stuff. Like I didn't see any of the Evil Dead's, Darkman. I wasn't well versed in that. My introduction to Sam Raimi was the Spider-Man trilogy. So Kid Parker would say Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is just it takes what the first one did correctly and just built on it and made it one of the most iconic sequels probably to ever be put to screen. But as an adult and kind of being, taking in all of his original work and everything, I'm going to go with another sequel from Sam Raimi, and that is Evil Dead 2, which is just so good. It is. Yeah. We just talked about, horror, but, if you want to consider Young Frankenstein a horror comedy, Evil Dead 2 is a perfect horror comedy.
Absolutely, yeah. On the podcast, we did Darkman versus The Gift. I really liked Darkman. It's definitely one of those where you can certainly see the filmmaking there, but I always kind of I don't really mind that too much. It just gives it a lot of great charm. Yeah, with Evil Dead 2, we've covered it on the podcast before years ago. I do love my Sam Raimi movies. It's just a shame with like the new ones. It's just kind of like pure horror now, like with Evil Dead Rise, and I suspect Evil Dead Burn that starts shooting soon or is out in a couple of years or something. It's just like pure horror now. They're not really going with the comedy side anymore, which I think is a shame.
I think it is kind of a shame just because of how well that original trilogy worked. I mean, with probably the exception of the first Evil Dead, because I don't see that as a comedy. I think that was Sam Raimi really trying to make a pure horror movie, and then because of kind of the reception it got and kind of how trashed it got pretty much by everyone, he was like, you know what, let's do something a little bit different, and really took what Bruce Campbell could do, and kind of gave him full reins on creating that Ash Williams character and creating what we ended up getting with Evil Dead 2 and then with Army of Darkness, which just kind of that's a full-fledged comedy, with a little bit of horror element here and there. But yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's the newer ones, it's kind of because technically Evil Dead 2013 isn't a remake, it's kind of a continuation, which I kind of wish it wasn't. I kind of wish it was a remake, because then it would make sense, the fact of we're getting pure horror from this franchise now instead of getting those comedic beats, which kind of they even did a show which was comedy. It was a comedy horror show with Ash versus Evil Dead. To kind of go into the full horror, it's like, okay, well, maybe this can be a reimagining of Evil Dead, but instead they were like, well, it kind of connects with the other ones. And it's like, yeah, but it kind of doesn't make sense. I still enjoy the hell out of these new ones. I think they're really especially Evil Dead 2013, I think did a fantastic job at giving us a reimagining of what we got in the original, which I think doesn't get the love it deserves, especially, it's always Evil Dead 2. I think Evil Dead is still a great movie. I enjoy it a lot because it's definitely, this is it's an indie movie before indie movies were like became what they are now, where they're everywhere. Indie movies were just people trying to get their foot in the door to do the bigger things.
Yeah. Where he was literally just strapping cameras onto planks and running around with it.
Yeah, exactly. Making it for like next to nothing.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same opinion as you with the new ones. Like I really like them. But yeah, I would like a little bit more comedy in there. But I mean, with the horror stuff, the pure horror stuff with them, certainly in Evil Dead Rise, like there's some really gnarly stuff in there. Like I'm always putting down cheese graters carefully now. Let's say that. But we're talking Frankenstein films, and it is my turn now. And I thought, you know what, let's go with the most recent one, which I really liked. It's not perfect by any means, but I love the fact that Guillermo del Toro has finally made his Frankenstein film. It was widely known that this was always his kind of passion project that he wanted to do for years and years, and never really got it made for whatever reason, and just went to other projects like the fish fucker one, Shape of Water, which I'm not a massive fan of that, but Frankenstein is great. Obviously, Del Toro is definitely putting his own spin on it with certain things structurally, as well as kind of obviously having his own sort of design there with kind of the blood reds, and you definitely have this kind of Hammer feel to it, certainly with the design, which I really loved. Yeah, so I went with Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein from 2025 from last year. Other films that were in contention, I definitely thought about Young Frankenstein because my girlfriend absolutely loves that film, and I will be in trouble if it doesn't win, frankly. So she's already literally sent me a voice note saying it better win. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I will score it honestly, dear, and see what happens. Other films, Young Frankenstein, I absolutely love that. Obviously, we talked about that in part 1. Go check it out. Curse of Frankenstein has a lot of great charm to it. The Hammer version of Frankenstein with Christopher Lee as the creature and Peter Cushing, there you go, Peter Cushing as Frankenstein, a film. It's got some kind of, it has that kind of Hammer feel that you would kind of expect. It has its great moments. It's definitely still worth a watch. It's certainly not one of their better movies. I don't think they did many Frankenstein films after that. They mainly focused on And That Run, which are obviously great classics in themselves. Other ones, I did consider heavily Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the Kenneth Branagh one. I think I've only seen that once, so I was very tempted to go with that one.
It's been a long time. I think I was young when I saw that for the first time because I was very interested in Frankenstein, and I remember coming out of that like Robert De Niro's The Creature was a choice.
Yeah. Apparently arguably the most faithful adaptation, people say. I've not actually read the book myself. I do want to read it one day, so that was definitely on the table. But yeah, Robert De Niro's The Creature. And the other movie that was definitely in my mind, but never really in contention, but I was never going to win, was, my girlfriend definitely mentioned it to me. I should definitely go for Van Helsing.
Oh man, that would have been fun. That would have been really fun.
I remember seeing that in the cinema, and I had a fucking amazing time.
All I remember is seeing the trailer, and it was like from the director of The Mummy, and I went, "Well, I'm seeing this."
Hugh Jackman with his automatic crossbow. Yes, sign me up.
Oh man,
with Dracula and Frankenstein's creature in there.
Fell in love with Kate Beckinsale. Watching that movie. Yeah.
Sexy as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, ultimately went with Frankenstein from last year. So initial reactions for you, Parker? What did you make of this one?
I love Del Toro. His vision for whatever he puts on screen is just it grabs me and it pulls me in real close, and it's just like, you are going to enjoy this no matter what. And this was my favorite movie of 2025. So I remember sitting down, and I mean, I was excited as soon as I heard about it. I mean, Del Toro doing anything, I'm getting excited for. Yeah. But sitting down and watching it, and just the visuals, and yes, it is a retelling of the story of Frankenstein and his creature, but it adds elements to make it fresh, but also familiar. Great performances, just everything that you would expect from it is Del Toro's vision of Frankenstein, and you feel it in every frame. And by the time it was over, I didn't feel that almost what is like 2:35, I think it was, for the runtime. I didn't feel it. Didn't. It was one of those, like, I could have watched another hour of whatever whatever that he wanted to give me.
Yeah, absolutely. Visually, it's pretty stunning. Argument against that, really. Going into like a Guillermo del Toro film, the one thing I always look forward to is just the design of everything. He is so involved in the design elements of his monsters and his sets. One of my favorite films of him, actually, which is much maligned and frankly impossible to market, was Crimson Peak. I really like that one. Very gothic, and there's a lot of like Crimson Peak in here a little bit.
Very much.
Yeah, certainly with its design. And I find the performances outstanding. Like, I'm really pleased as well that Jacob Elordi is in the awards conversation for his portrayal, which I never for one moment thought he would be. I was like, nah, they won't nominate him for awards. Oh my God, they are. Oh my shit. This is great. Yeah, I think I certainly have quibbles with a few scenes, but overall it's a really great time, and you can really feel the passion that's put on screen here for sure.
Absolutely.
So what happens in Frankenstein? Well, read the book. Going to IMDb as always, which states Dr. Victor Frankenstein, a brilliant but egotistical scientist, brings a creature to life in a monstrous experiment that ultimately leads to the undoing of both the creature and his tragic creation. Yeah, so Oscar Isaac plays Victor Frankenstein, Jacob Elordi plays the creature, and Christoph Waltz is in here as Harlander, sort of his benefactor, the money man that literally gives Frankenstein the money to actually make this experiment happen.
He's his benefactor.
Yeah. And Maya Goth plays Elizabeth Harlander, and actually plays two roles. Maya Goth plays her mother.
I didn't know the first time I saw this.
Yeah, which is how great her performance is, the thing you don't know initially. Yeah, I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. Yeah, her costume design is like off the scale, like bright and colorful. Just so good. Yeah, she's great in it as well. So getting into it then with the main discussion, like going right from the start, like I loved the opening kind of prelude here, prologue, and just the way it kind of looks at night with this amazing like Northern Lights green tinge to the lighting, in the Arctic. Like the anticipation of seeing the creature for the first time is great too, where like the Danish sailor's ship is like stuck in the ice and they find Dr. Frankenstein and someone says he's been mauled by a bear. Then you hear kind of this big roar with like great backlighting of the creature approaching, but you can't see him yet. Then when you see him approaching in the distance, he gets shot a few times, and he's just like wearing this really like ragged coat, like the hood is in complete shadow covering his face. Apart from, you get this really tiny glimpse of his eyes before he wreaks havoc by basically throwing people like they're nothing and and throwing a few wrestling moves in there, which was cool.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that the only like good shot of the creature's eyes is when he's just about to like fall in the ice at the end of the scene when they shoot him off with the blunderbuster. And it just gives you this glimpse of his kind of humanity before we properly meet him, but before he gets created, and and not the hate and rage in his eyes at first, which I thought was a great like touch as we move forward into the story. I thought that was just such a great idea to sort of give you the first proper glimpse of what this person looks like, and yet the shot is him just before he's falling into the ice, and at that point you don't know that he is basically immortal if you're very fresh to this story. So I thought that was just a really interesting choice there.
Yeah, opening the movie like this, which I know is kind of how this story begins anyways, but I think it's just done perfectly because of the fact of we get a lot of it's mostly it's mostly visionary and seeing the creature at a distance, and that's what the crew expects it to be, as a bear coming to do whatever it's going to do after seeing or finding Victor in the ice. And the conversation that Victor has with the captain, and the fact of him being like, no, you have to take this more seriously because this is something you've never dealt with before. And he's just like, oh, it's fine. It's fine.
It's just a big dude.
Yeah. But that roar is just terrifying because it's like, it's not human. Right. So you're questioning, what this is, and, kind of hiding his face and only seeing his eye, I think is beautifully done, and just showing his brute strength. It's not just, basic fighting. Like, he is throwing people like 30 yards away and like doing things to these guys that are ultimately innocent in this whole thing. So it kind of is one of those moments like he will do whatever he has to do to get to Victor. Yeah, I just think the performances here, even though it's very minimal, is very effective. And to introduce us to these characters in this predicament and then kind of reset to the beginning, it definitely catches you and pulls you in. As I stated, when it comes to Del Toro, you have to have that hook. And I think doing this is that hook. And then it's like, bring me back to the slower parts of the story where we're meeting Victor and he's, he's just living.
Yeah, I love that aspect as well. What I find kind of great about this adaptation as well, you really get a sense of sort of the character arcs here, and really getting a sense of all the characters' motivations. And obviously, the main character here is Frankenstein himself. He's very central to this story throughout, obviously. And his motivations for creating the creature are really interesting to me, certainly when you see the young version of him, when he kind of refuses to accept that his father couldn't save his mother and that his brother lives in childbirth. He just doesn't really accept that. And it's more of like an obsession to be better than his father than actually just trying to be a great doctor and trying to actually gain more knowledge about science and being a great surgeon or whatever. He fails to see that his father didn't love his mother. And so like the only reason he set out this kind of pursuit of this journey is to, it feels to me anyway, to beat his father without the love element, without love, and to find out what happens, and to find out what happens when you cheat death, basically, and not even really thinking about the consequences, obviously, which we later find out. But I just find that was quite really well handled, those scenes where you see young Frankenstein, pardon the pun. It felt so economic, and felt you really got to the heart of like why he's doing this, and it's really kind of for jealousy and revenge. He's drinking all this milk.
Yes, it's very it's definitely some sort of it shows that he loves his mother, and he is very much a mama's boy, if like to use a more common phrase. But it also is, it shows why his father doesn't love him in the way that he was hoping, because the fact that he is loved by his mother, he is very close to his mother, and the father is not a big fan of the mom, which is like, well, then what was the point of and so he doesn't see him as like the man that he was hoping for. So when the brother is born and the mother dies, that's the son that won't grow up with a mother, so I can groom him to be the man I want him to be. And that's why he shows a lot more love to the brother than to him. And, the milk having to do with just his love for his mother, and the fact that he wears the red, which I love, like the imagery and kind of the connective tissues that you get, her, when you first meet, what is she, Mrs. Frankenstein, she has like the bright red, like that blood red dress on. And then as the movie progresses, you see Victor, like his gloves and kind of some of the apparel that he wears is got that blood red look to it, to kind of connect him to his mother, where the father is more just like the blackness of him. Like he's just a dark man. And Charles Dance, you need just a piece of crap human being. Charles Dance is very good at that. He is just always so perfect at just being that guy.
Yeah, I suppose he's a very nice man in real life.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not talking about the real person, but like he is very good at being kind of that stoic, like straight to the point, and he doesn't care. Like, yeah, you're my son, but you're like, but are you kind of like, you're not you're not the man that I was hoping for. So, and to be honest, that is what I'm getting out of your mother is I need children. I need boys to kind of push my agenda, push my, my practices onto you so that you can just continue my work. And Victor's like, well, you didn't like my mom. I don't like you. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to, you are a very one track mind where you're just doing the same thing and not trying to learn the new things in your practices. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do good for the world of science. I'm going to make things better. I'm going to create new things and prove you wrong
by saying please, because it always helps. Yeah, like Charles Dance is always great. I really like that scene when he's about to punish Victor, but he hits his face instead of his hands, because he's still, I feel like there is an element that he sees Victor as sort of someone that he thinks he can like progress his own legacy mistakenly, and obviously just turns his attention to William, the brother. Yeah, he's a really great actor and fills that role fantastically. Going to like the production design, I loved all of it. Frankly, like
so beautiful.
Like the giant red and green like glowing steam batteries are fantastic in the laboratory scene. Like to the blood-covered streets of Edinburgh with all the random butchery that's going on outside of his apartment. Not very sanitary at all. Even like showing off the use of a fully functioning toilet where Christoph Waltz happily takes a piss, which I found was great. A great, this isn't void of humor. There's got some really great funny scenes, and I loved, some of the other details too. When the creature wears like the old soldier's coat during like the blind man scenes, and you can see like the indentations of the dead soldier's spine on his back, and it's sort of like a reminder that he comes from death with that coat on, and it sort of symbolizes that Frankenstein is always going to be like a burden for him that he has created from fallen soldiers, essentially.
Right. And yeah, I mean the imagery of the frozen like battlefield where Victor is going out and choosing bodies that he is going to use, and I mean just like we were talking about like Victor as a kid, like just that mansion that they live in, that castle is just beautiful. The statue, that angel statue that kind of comes into play a couple times throughout the movie, it just the coloration of it. And I've always been a big fan of like Christian iconography, even though I'm not a religious person. Like I don't believe in those things, but I love like the statues and the portraits and stuff that depict angels and demons and kind of the, you know, the workings of the Bible kind of brought to life. And, you know, of course, Guillermo del Toro being Mexican, you know, he puts that his kind of culture into every movie that he does, kind of not so it's like blatantly there, but like subtly, where you kind of have to be like, oh, okay, I see the colors, or, you know, something that, you know, comes from that culture, but it's like perfectly placed. And I think that's what, and he's very much involved in it too. Like when it comes to the set designing, he's there with, you know, everyone who's involved, and just kind of like there's behind the scenes videos of him like placing body parts in certain places that he wants them to be, like during the scene where Victor is building his creature. It's just from beginning to end, you're just, I think even if you have a subpar script, if you can make things look good, you can still make an enjoyable movie. Not to say that's what this is, but like I think that's what Guillermo del Toro is why Guillermo del Toro is such a master at his craft, because he can take every aspect of filmmaking and kind of blend it in perfectly. Yeah,
and it's not like the production design is not like, you know, just his favorite, you know, production elements, his favorite like design elements that he just wants to see in a Frankenstein film. It kind of, there's context here, like there's historical context. I feel like, especially with that laboratory, they make it very clear that it was an old munitions factory, and yet it still feels so Guillermo del Toro like, but you can see the functionality there of its previous owners as being a genuine factory, with kind of like the cellar areas where, you know, the creature is being held at the start of his life, and you see where sort of the old sort of steam engine cranes are. I think there's a few shots of that, which is great. And so it feels very, even though there definitely is a very fantastical science fiction element here with the design, it's definitely all kind of thought about through, okay, how would this actually look in a sort of historical context from the, you know, 1850s or whatever time period it was set in. It's always kind of seen through that lens with a little bit of Del Toro magic in there, which I loved. I loved the laboratory, you know, the famous laboratory scene that you always get in Frankenstein movies, and this is no different. But it kind of definitely feels a little different, and you have like sort of the familiar and a little bit of a different flavor here, and it's really impressive. You know, you have like Victor Frankenstein like climbing the tower, and the creature like rising up to meet the lightning, as you kind of would expect. It's pouring down with rain. Plus you have like the amazing, you know, as we said, Del Toro production design with the amazing deep red of the steam batteries, with again like the haze of green everywhere. But this time you have like the conflict between like Victor Frankenstein and Harlander, where it's revealed that he wants Frankenstein to put his brain in the creature's body. Before you can even comprehend that, the lightning storm happens and the whole experiment is in play, and they have this kind of a little scuffle on the edge of the room, and you know, and Harlander meets a very gory end by falling down the hole.
Well, yeah, because you get the whole thing where he tells him that he has I can't remember, he has an STD,
syphilis.
Syphilis,
well,
which
he thinks it's syphilis,
which I guess at that time was a death sentence. Like he was going to die, and he's like, well, I can't put your brain in the creature, like if you have this, because that's where it's going to attack. It's attacking your brain, so your brain's not clean. So I can't do it. And it's him trying to like justify, like, oh, no, you can. He's like, no, I can't. And then, yeah, it turns into a pretty graphic end where he falls down that terrifying hole in the middle of the lab, where it's like, where's the safety railings? Where's OSHA when you need them? Like, there should be safety railings around this thing, because anyone could just fall, and he does. Yeah. And his head turns into an egg.
Yeah, it's definitely a tad funny where like Frankenstein lifts his squished head up and then just lets go like it was nothing. So you've got like that grand, so you've got like this grand scale of this experiment where you have this familiarity of the previous adaptations, then this kind of new added element of Hollander's reveal, and the intensity of that little scuffle, and it's pouring down with rain. You definitely feel like you're getting soaked yourself in some ways. It just feels so wet and just makes the tiles feel even harder than they are. And that, yeah, as you say, that fall just makes it all feel worse. The only thing I didn't like was the fact that the camera goes inside the creature and we explore like the innards for a bit, which, I don't know, just these days it feels a tad cliched. So I feel like we get that a lot now with when we have like seen modern films of characters where like their body is being manipulated by something. The camera's just got to always just go in there and explore what's going on.
Right. I mean, we were talking about Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Like when Peter Parker gets bit by the spider, it shows his cells, turning in, getting the Spider-Man colors and showing that he is going to become Spider-Man. So yeah, it happens a lot. I do agree. I guess it just didn't bother me. I thought it was because of what this movie is, and it's a Frankenstein movie. So to see like the innards of this creature coming to life, I guess it just didn't bother me that much. I mean, if it would have been okay if it didn't happen, yeah, absolutely. I mean, shave that 30 seconds off of that, and it wouldn't have changed a thing for me.
Yeah, I just love that kind of how simple, like the design is all great, but like it feels all kind of very functional. You got this pure silver conductor that just kind of turns at a 90-degree angle on a crank system, and the creature is just lifted up, and that's about it. And he has this amazing like chest clamp, all made of silver. And then it's just the red batteries. It's just a great like composition. And you got like the Medusa statue for a wall.
Oh, so
in there
good
as well. It feels like there's a lot going on, but the way it's shot, it just feels kind of very simple at the same time with its functionality. Yeah, really, really great, that scene for sure.
Yeah, that helmet and silver chest piece, I think, is just like the imagery of it is just beautiful, because you're not seeing what the creature looks like yet, and they really do a great job at keeping the creature a secret, until its ultimate reveal when it comes to life and visits Victor.
Did you like that? I know it's definitely like the way it's played out in the book. Did you appreciate that? Do you think it had the most like shock value doing it like that?
So I appreciate it, because I think this movie really does a great job at showing kind of maybe the life of an abusive parent. Yeah. Where when Victor sees the creature after thinking he failed, which is always the touch that you have to give the story, is you always have to have Victor feel like he fails. And then, of course, the creature comes to life. But when he visits him, it's like he is meeting his newborn child, right? You're always ecstatic to meet your newborn child. He is showing his child the sun and like just the basic things. But then as the story progresses, Victor's turning more abusive and becoming the parent that you should not become. And you're seeing your child as a creation more than as your child, which is, of course, that's what Victor has control. And then when he starts to lose control, that's when he becomes more abusive. And it's like, you're my creation. It's like, no, you created him like he's your child, quote unquote. But that's just not how he sees it. But so I really appreciate seeing Victor kind of in this light, because because you're not sure where it's going to go, right? Unless you know the story, but you could change it. You could always make Victor, you could maybe make a story where Victor is more sympathetic. Guess what? He's not in this. He's not a very sympathetic character in this, but him being introduced to the creature and him having sympathy for the creature and shows what you think is love. I appreciate that, but there's also an underlining thing where you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe this is just the fact that I won. I succeeded, instead of it being kind of a beautiful moment between him and the creature.
Yeah, I definitely echo that as well. It's just a great, beautiful, in a way, scene where, you know, he wakes up and he's just there at the end of his bed. And as you say, it's just, he's like, yes, I've accomplished what I set out to do. And he's already in like, okay, what can this guy do? What are his abilities, rather than trying to nurture him. Saying that, there is an element where, because it definitely has like a great kind of understated shock, you know, dramatic value in doing it the way it's done. But a part of me wishes that the creature wakes up in, you know, in the chair, on the platform still, and you see that kind of him taking the bandages off there and then, and you know, maybe you have like Victor down the end of the room and he just turns around. For me, that would be a little bit more visceral and just like more present of a moment to really see like the creature for the first time in a more of a visceral way. But thematically, obvious with how the story goes, that obviously doing it like that doesn't work as well. But yeah, so there was just a little part of me where I just like, I just wish they would have done it more of the sort of universal way.
Yeah,
But,
I do.
yeah.
I can agree with that. I think one of the problems would have been this movie would have been 3.5 hours long. And as much as I wouldn't have cared, I think, as I mentioned before, I could have watched another hour of this movie. I mean, if they came out with a, you know, director's cut of it where we had that scene, maybe I would watch it, because it would just enhance the experience of some of these crucial scenes.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of liked sort of the attention to detail here as well, in terms of when this is set and how much, you know, we understood about science, and how like the scientists of the day were kind of still learning about, you know, the human body, etc. And you know, and I kind of really appreciated that kind of they tried to make the science and the thinking of the time, you know, somehow believable. Where like Frankenstein and Harlander believe the breakthrough to store like energy and sustain life in the creature is through like the spinal column of the lymphatic nervous system. There is some sort of like science of the day within this science fiction story, so I certainly appreciate that on one level. The kind of the themes of the film were really great for me. Like, I love the theme that represents kind of Elizabeth Hollander, who basically says that, you know, when we see her for the first time, there's this conversation about ideas, and like ideas on their own are great, but if wielded by fools are, you know, ideas are not great at all, like referencing the current war that's going on. And of course, it's no accident that Frankenstein uses body parts from a battlefield in this film. And Frankenstein looks pretty stumped a little and annoyed as he leaves in that scene. And then after that, their relationship becomes quite interesting, where like Frankenstein discovers that Elizabeth is into science as well, which he was kind of completely oblivious of, and really surprised him. You know, she brings out this book of insects, but God is still like a strong part of her life. Religion is still really important to this character. Like, there's a scene later where like Elizabeth becomes fascinated by one of Frankenstein's dissected bodies, and Frankenstein's like, okay, I love you now.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth's like belief in the soul and God is, I think, is still kind of the stronger part of her character, which kind of repels her from Frankenstein in the end. And she can recognize, as well as William a bit before he dies, that, you know, Frankenstein is just all about the pursuit of science and what humanity is capable of, and not really looking past any of that.
Yeah, she doesn't chase him. She definitely has those moments of, you know, can I fall in love with this man, or is it a lost cause? And I think she finds out pretty quickly that it's a lost cause, but he tries to convince her that he can be both. He can pursue what he's doing, but he can also love her the way that she needs to be loved. But it's, you know, it all kind of just blows up in his face because we find out he can't. He is so obsessed with his work that it turns him into a monster. And that's one of the lines that she has is, only monsters play God Baron. And she's literally telling him he's a monster.
Yeah. She's not the only one who says that as well. Like, I think William says that as well. And I think what's interesting as well, Victor recognizes that he is a monster, but there's like himself, he's thinking like, there's nothing I can really do to change it. I am who I am. And
it's that obsessive nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's interesting as well with like Elizabeth's relationship to the creature, Jacob Elordi's portrayal of him. And Elizabeth immediately sees kind of the humanity and the pure innocence of the creature when she meets him in chains in those chambers, where Victor doesn't see it at all. You know, Frankenstein always calls it, whereas Elizabeth always calls the creature him or he. She always sees kind of the soul behind the eyes kind of thing with their interactions. And I kind of liked as well with the pacing that it all kind of slows down a little bit with their scenes, with the leaf and stuff. And there's more of a softer touch with everything with those two compared to when, you know, Victor is interacting with the creature. And it gets increasingly frustrated. Like, Victor, is that all you can say? You know?
I mean, you could see, like, when she discovers the creature, it's like discovering a child.
Yeah.
Right. And she becomes like, becomes his teacher, you know, showing him the basic things to kind of get him to better understand things. And ultimately, she's the reason why he can start to talk more, why he can actually understand and speak full sentences instead of just saying Victor. Because the only reason he's saying Victor is because that's the first thing that he was told. Like, and the thing is like, when you're gentle and kind and not forceful, it's going to be a better learning experience for that subject than yelling and screaming and you know, he also hits him, which is like, you ain't gonna learn shit doing that. Like,
I feel like this film just needs to be shown for teachers themselves. Like, this is how you need to treat children, people, to get good results.
Exactly. But it's Elizabeth, and what's great is they don't make it like a weird, like, love, like, it's not any, you don't feel any sexual moments between her and the creature. I think it's all just, I think her love for the creature is just to make him more human and to make him be able to survive on his own, or survive in a world that ultimately would be afraid of him if they ever were to experience it. So I don't know. It's one of those, you know, dynamics where you have, you know, opposites attract, but ultimately Elizabeth, she has a good head on her shoulder where she can see when things aren't going to work, or when, you know, being with Victor is just, it's not in the cards. It's just not a good idea. Could she do it and deal with abuse? Because ultimately he would probably do the same thing to her. Yeah. And she also sees it in a way as just like, it's not good for my, you know, I'm married to your brother, or I'm married to your brother, which is just like, it's not okay that for what we're doing. And what I'm seeing, what you're doing to this creature, if you're going to do this to your creation, like, what happens if we had kids? Are you going to be the same type of person?
Yeah, definitely.
So there's a lot there to kind of break down.
Absolutely. Yeah. And she's the one that, and there's enough there in kind of the character development and how she's written, and there's enough with the scenes, those slow scenes with the creature, where she ultimately decides to turn the vehicle around to go try and
save the creature,
Victor from killing him, from blowing it up. The carriage, there you go, there's the word. Maya Goth is fantastic. I kind of like some of these other little details that kind of shows off the lack of humanity from Victor Frankenstein. Like, there's a little scene where Frankenstein's at this hanging and is basically examining these people before they get hanged and says, yes, this one will do. He's got a strong back. Off you go and die, please.
It doesn't hold back when it comes to like the gruesome parts of like showing you him building this creature. It's not just like, you know, the idea of it and then it comes to fruition. We're seeing him flop, you know, the room just covered in body parts and him slowly putting it together. And it's just like, there's just a lot of grotesque scenes in this that are gross, but it also is like, also it's very well done because it's Del Toro and because of that, the scene design is just perfect. Everything is placed beautifully and the colors are great, but it's also what Frankenstein is doing is inhumane. It's just it's monstrous, as you know. Perfect description of who Victor Frankenstein is.
Yeah, I think that's definitely my favorite scene, actually, where Victor Frankenstein is constructing the creature. Like, I loved all the gory scenes, and especially that scene in particular. And it's very matter of fact. It's simply to the point, and it's sort of almost like, you know, point and shoot with the camera almost, as Del Toro isn't messing about, like Frankenstein isn't messing about either. There's certainly like a bit of comedy laced with this as well, because firstly, like, it's more of a montage scene of gore.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus it starts off with like Frankenstein feeling very disappointed, where they bring in someone that's with a guy that's half missing a head. Plus Frankenstein is like sawing off a man's leg, which always makes me wince every time a little bit. And it's and it's all like accompanied by this very whimsical, joyous music, like we're all at the circus right now. Also, the kind of the sound design of just flesh and bones being put together is certainly turned up a notch in the mix. I imagine a lot of like veg has been crushed to create that sound.
Yeah, that sound design is just it's perfect.
It's feast for the senses, for sure. Yeah. What do you reckon about kind of the framing device here, where, you know, we're sort of being told like Victor's tale in the first half of the film, and then we have this reveal that the creature kind of bursts through the door in the ship, and then he's like, I'm going to tell my story now. It felt a tad clunky to me. I like the idea of progressing the story like that and getting it from the creature's perspective, like having a part 2, the creature's tale come up. I just feel like the writing could have been a little bit better there, but what do you make of that? Because it's only really like the spirit of the forest scenes that's really from his perspective.
Right. We're not going all the way back to the beginning when he was first brought to life. Like, we're getting it based off of his right after the castle is blown up, and he is, you know, we're taking, you know, from there all the way until we are now back with them again, and we get that at the conclusion to the story. But I didn't mind it, because I think it was good to see the creature kind of come out of the darkness and, you know, not cause violence between the crews. And, you know, it's just like, you know, you've heard his story, you know, now hear mine. And I mean, ultimately, that is what the story of Frankenstein is it's just a recount of the events of what Victor Frankenstein was doing to create the creature, and then the creature kind of giving his own account of, you know, kind of filling in the blanks. Because if we were just following Victor the whole time, we would never know what kind of came to be with the creature, unless we were just to go to a format where you're going to flip back and forth between Victor and the creature, which wouldn't make much sense, especially in the beginning of the movie where it introduces you to Victor's side. Like, this is his story. And the line, you know, some of what I will tell you is fact, some is not, but all of it is true. And it's just like, it's such a weird thing to say, because it's like, this story, I may have made some things up, but all of it is true. It's like, but you're counteracting what you're saying. It doesn't make any sense, but I think it's a great
arrogance
line.
is getting in the way.
Yes. I mean, because we know who Victor is. So to have the creature kind of give it, be like, all right, you heard his BS. Now it's time for you to hear, you know, my side of the story. And for it to open up with him kind of washing up on the beach, and then seeing kind of how he kind of continues his journey, how he becomes the creature we meet in the conclusion, or in the opening and in the conclusion, I thought was really well done. I thought I could see where people may say it's dragged out a little bit. Like some of these moments with the creature is kind of, it takes its sweet time to get to kind of the next like big event, which would be like when he meets the villagers and kind of the wolf attack that happens and all that, and then the blind man interaction in this, the version that we get in this movie. But I think it's all well done. You get to see the growth of the creature. You get to see, how he becomes who he becomes, and kind of how he is able to face Victor as a person. Instead of as what most people would think monster. Of him as a monster.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I love the pacing, the fact that it really does slow down when it's just him. You really get a sense of how like Jacob Elordi is progressing this character, how this very sort of primitive creature that's really just discovering the world for the very first time, how that's evolving with his acting. It's really beautifully done, and you can only really do that by slowing things down and really just keeping it very simple and just letting Jacob Elordi do his thing and working it out, working with Del Toro and the movement people to just figure this out and keeping it simple. And I loved all that. I kind of loved how it was all structured. It was just, I wish that scene on the boat was just a little bit better, but yeah, that's my only gripe with the whole structure of it. But yeah, moving on to like the kind of the farmer scene, as the creature is known as the spirit of the forest from the blind man. Obviously, it's always an integral part of the Frankenstein story, but it's also some of the most brutal scenes in this film. Like one of the most brutal is the demise of the sheep farmers, the sheep, and the blind man himself, and the wolves. Like when the creature kills the wolves, like the creature like snaps one of the wolves' necks and literally like skins one of the wolves' heads with one hand. Like then when like the hunters arrive and he literally just removes like the jaw, it just comes straight off, like clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
It's very much like the creature doesn't know how strong he is. He doesn't know his own strength. Like the crazy thing is like it's all like in the middle of this, it's such a well done, tender scene with the blind man dying right in the middle of all this very strong violence. It's just, as soon as that's done, we go straight into, the creature killing, the hunters.
It's one of those things where when he first interacts with the wolves or interacts with anyone where he has to use his strength, he doesn't know, because of course he's never had to use it. Yeah. So it's an introduction to him having to use physical power, and the great thing about the blind man, why he is so important to the story of Frankenstein, is because he ultimately, other than Elizabeth, shows him his humanity.
Yeah.
And because for one, he can't see him. He can just feel him and kind of can hear his voice and kind of like can tell just by those senses of who he is and who he can become, because he doesn't know he's a monster, or what people perceive of him as a monster. Like he just thinks of him as a man, and kind of talks to him and teaches him like he's a child, like you have a lot to learn, but this is how you can become who you want to become. And so seeing him die and is kind of an eye-opener for him to be like, okay, I can be a protector. Like I need to protect the ones I love, and I'm getting these new emotions and then I can be able to control how I use those emotions, where before it was just use your brute strength to get to the next piece. I mean, even at the, when we see him throwing guys around, like he's doing that on purpose. Like he knows how strong he is now. So when he's doing that, it's like, I'm going to get to Victor. I'm going to use the strength that I know I have, but he has control where initially he didn't have any.
Yeah, and got some wrestling lessons along the way.
Yeah.
Probably. But yeah, I think he's learning like new emotions as well. Like he's just experienced so much kindness and love from this blind man, and witnessing for the first time, and when he sees him die, he then experiences rage for the first time in anger, and he just takes it out on that man's jaw quite spectacularly. And what's also interesting about the blind man's performance, I forget his name, but he is fantastic because he recognizes that he has been injured in battle. He can feel his scars. So, okay, this guy must be like a lost soldier or something, a surviving soldier that's really badly injured. And yet the things he's saying doesn't add up for what a soldier would normally say. So in these kind of situations, like he's not desperate for, medical supplies or whatever, so there's definitely, I think for me, there's definitely an element from that performance that he can recognize that something's not normal about this person that he's interacting with, even though he can't see him. And I think that's just really well judged for me in the writing and the performance.
Yeah, David Bradley is the one who plays the blind man. He has worked with Del Toro quite a bit. He was the voice of Geppetto in his Pinocchio from a couple years ago. He was also one of the main cast members of the Del Toro produced show The Strain, which was on FX for a while back in like the mid 2010s. Right. But he is, and he played Mr. Finch in the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, of course.
But his kind of, demeanor towards the creature is, somebody he's trying to understand, but he at first doesn't, because it's not somebody he would expect to meet. He doesn't sound like one of the farmers. He doesn't sound like somebody who could be a farmer. He doesn't sound like a soldier. He just sounds like someone who's lost, like a child who is lost in the woods, and he needs to help him in either finding his way back or just kind of find him or help him kind of find his way through life. And that's why I think the blind man is just is a crucial part of telling this story.
Absolutely. The only frustrating thing about kind of the action scenes within that scene is just like, and it's throughout the whole film as well, it's just the use of digital blood. It's never really convincing to me, and it just takes me out of it just a smidge. But it's that's my only thing, really. But
digital blood is. I hope they can get better with it at some point down the road, because it just doesn't look as good as that real fake blood. And there's easy ways to just go from a digital effect, like the wolves, which I will admit the wolves don't look great. Yeah, they don't look the best, but it's such a small thing where it doesn't bother me that much. But the blood, there's 100%. Like, you see a dead body on the ground, like you should be able to put some real blood on that thing, like put some real, the real fake stuff. But yeah, it's such a small complaint.
Yeah, also just kind of a small thing as well. I love how kind of Del Toro keeps the film quite simple between like Victor and the creature when they're hunting each other while we're in the snow and ice towards the end of the film. Like, Del Toro has a little bit of a chance to kind of show off what he can do behind the camera, rather than the production design, and rather than just presenting everything in a beautiful way. But with this, it's more just the landscape and just the two actors and the two characters that he has to create kind of this great sort of horror and suspense, especially with that kind of little tent scene. So I feel like there's definitely a little bit of cool suspense there where Del Toro can do a bit of sort of camera work magic.
Yeah, because it's I just love the flip that we get where it's Victor goes out to hunt the creature, but he ultimately has proven that the creature is hunting him, and the creature is playing with him. He's like, he's not just straight up going to find Victor and kill him. He's going to play with him until ultimately, I think the whole goal is for the creature to have Victor kind of either die on his own or to take his own life. because the creature doesn't want to have that blood on his hand. He's like, you know what you are. So you need to take yourself out of the equation. I'm not going to do it for you because that would just be too easy. So, but I will hunt you and I will make you think about me until your last breath. That is my ultimate goal, is for you to think of me as you die.
Yeah, definitely. I think Del Toro, with the direction, he plays around with like shadow a little bit more and kind of has fun with that, and not like doesn't do too much to really get away from this tone that he's already, this kind of grand epic tone that he's already established, but there's just a little bit more like suspense in that moment in particular, which I really kind of liked, but it's not too much. With like Victor and the creatures stories, they definitely have different narrative trajectories, especially in that final act. Like Victor feels like he's just about to find sanity again, in his own words. But as soon as like the creature turns up at his brother's wedding, the monster in Victor comes out again, and it doesn't take much for him to go over the edge of insanity again. And now his only goal is to kind of destroy the creature instead of creating one. Whereas with like the creature, he's very much at the peak of his powers and intelligence, and yet instead of wanting to experience life as soon as like Elizabeth dies, he wants death for himself, something like no one can really give him. You know, it just becomes tragic for both of them, and the only thing they can do is just forgive each other and accept who they essentially are, and that's this father and son. And it's just a beautiful ending for me on the ship, wonderfully acted, where the creature forgives Victor, and it's just a beautiful moment to end the movie. And they're just like, the only thing we can do really now is just be human for a moment. It's just a great ending.
Yeah, seeing Victor, I mean, this is ultimately where the script is flipped, where we see Victor fully become the monster. Him shooting and killing Elizabeth, of course it was an accident, at least in his eyes. He kills her, and he's the one who is doing all of this damage and, pinning it on the creature, even though we all see it for ourselves that the creature has nothing to do with this. He is just trying to become, what Victor created him as a person. Like, he wants to become that. And Elizabeth was the answer to getting closer to that goal. And he takes her from him. And yeah, to actually have that, that final conversation where he's just like, I forgive you, Father, and calls him Father, and it's kind of that whole thing where it's like, okay, now you can die, and you can die knowing, kind of contrary to what I just said, but you can kind of die knowing that, there's no blood on your hands, even though there's a lot of blood on your hands. It's like, I don't know. It's just like, I can now feel like I can live as a person and not as a creature, because one of the lines that the creature says is like, I can't die, but I can't live alone. And ultimately that's what he has to do until, he figures it out. And, we see, we see him see the sun, which is also a beautiful way to end it, because that's the first thing he sees. It's the first thing Victor shows him is the sun. And so to see, for that last shot to be of the creature looking at the sun, I think it's a beautiful bookend.
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing I found really funny though was during the wedding scene, and I only noticed this in like my third watch. During the wedding scene, and William is telling kind of the flower girls to just keep throwing the petals for the party, and then when after Elizabeth dies, the creature walks down with Elizabeth's body, and the petals are still going as the bride is dead.
But you told me to keep doing it.
I was like, do we keep going? I think we keep going. Are you sure?
I think this party's over.
Yeah, that was just so kind of, a detail that I think maybe they went a bit too far on. But yeah, that was funny. Let's talk a bit more about the kind of the performances here. Like Oscar Isaac, I think, is amazing with this. And, I just loved all those little bits with his frustrations. The fact that he can't get through to the creature that he's created.
Yeah, Oscar Isaac is, I mean, he's a fantastic actor pretty much in anything that you throw him in. You know, we could even state in some of the less loved things that he's done. He is definitely a bright spot to the movies, but his turn as Victor is probably one of the best, in my opinion. Just kind of his roller coaster of emotions as he is going through all these different scenarios, and his being able to be somebody who you feel like you could sympathize with because he wants to prove his father wrong, but then it ultimately turns into the monster and just he kind of turns into his father and by the end. And he does such a great job with those changes of emotion, and just it's one of the things where it's like he does a great job at making you hate him.
Oh,
and
yeah.
By the time it's all said and done, you hate Victor Frankenstein.
Yeah, but I think there's a level of like sympathy a little bit in that last scene where he kind of accepts who he is really before he dies, and also like that level of coldness he has on the ice when says, "Oh, I'm hunting big game." He's just dead focused on trying to kill him in that moment, and just kind of, and also what I loved about his performances, especially with his scenes with Maya Goth, who's also amazing, is just he certainly in those first few scenes with her, like Oscar Isaac just looks stumped by this character, and it's just like, I don't understand you.
The straight up frustration in his face. Yeah,
I do not understand your mentality here. Yet you can be someone of science and a great idealist, and yet still be very close to God and have religion as part of your life and part of your belief system. For Victor, he just doesn't get that. He doesn't understand that. And I think Oscar Isaac just does a great job. He's not doing anything like over expressive in expressing those kind of confused, stumped emotions. Yeah, he's just really pitches it in a perfect way.
His conversation with Elizabeth that first time they meet is one of those conversations where, for one, this is like the 1840s, 1850s. So, the fact of a woman kind of proving a man wrong is just not something a man is going to take very well.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit of that, but it's also the fact that just the confusion and the frustrations, like how can you be so deep into science, but also be so deep into religion when they don't work, because because religions are always trying to prove science wrong.
Yeah.
Because of, we talk about, I mean, that's ultimately like the creation of the world, the creation of man, like, religion and science, they've always clashed because of like, when did that start? Did it start with Adam and Eve, or did it start with the Big Bang? Like, it's always going to be that kind of conversation. That's ultimately the conversation they're having at the table. And I mean, I could see why it could be frustrating, because it is kind of a confusing notion of just like, how can you be, but it's like, sometimes faith and religion is so ingrained in you that it's hard, even when you know that science is proving all of these things wrong in religion, but you can still take parts of your religion and kind of keep it close to the chest. Yeah. And I think that's ultimately what she's doing. Is she's just, it's so ingrained in her, and she can, maybe the entire Bible isn't scripture. Like, it's not something that you need to kind of take to heart, but you can take elements and then kind of mix it with science and have it all make sense.
Yeah. Elizabeth is certainly of the mentality that she sees she's fascinated by God's design, and like, that's why she's not fazed about that amazing like waxwork design in the production of this body kind of crouched forward, and the back is all splayed, and she's just fascinated by the spinal column of but sees it through the lens of like, oh, how has God designed this? Whereas Victor's just focusing on the science itself and just how it's made, and forgetting about the God element, the religious element.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a great relationship they have. and how that's developed in and having, you know, the creature at the center of it. I love Christoph Waltz. I think he's always great in everything. Thank you, Tarantino, for bringing this man to our screens. But especially when he's talking about the lymphatic system to Frankenstein, and Frankenstein says that you can create like eternal life, but by going through the spinal column, and he walks and has got this kind of, he's got his back to him and to demonstrate it, and Christoph Waltz is kind of facing the lights, and then he kind of has this sort of euphoric moment, and before that he's been like really suave and collected, but during this scene you're like, he must have had his own motivations here with Frankenstein's work. And I kind of like that little bit where it's not too subtle either, because you don't want to be like you don't want it to be a huge surprise, like taking over from Frankenstein's story, that sort of euphoric moment that, he's got something here, he can save my life. In that little moment, he's great.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he does a great job at kind of hiding his true intentions of it all. You know, it's he just, at first you think he's just someone who is very passionate about Frankenstein's work, and that Frankenstein can do what he says he can do. And seeing that demonstration at the university of him bringing that half torso to life. And of course, everyone in this room are God-fearing men. So they're just like, oh, blasphemy. This is, this is not in the scripture. Like that, you know, that just showing how much religion has fought against science, and like proving, you know, and it's crazy to think like it still happens today.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's him seeing that demonstration, like his fascination with bringing the dead back to life. But there's no indications of what his true intentions are until it is revealed what his true intentions were at the wrong moment, at the worst possible moment to make that reveal. I mean, we ultimately get the reveal of him having syphilis before, you know, and that's ultimately when Victor's just like, I can't put your brain that's diseased into this perfect, because this is supposed to be a perfect creation. Like, this is supposed to be my perfect creation. So
but that's what I'm going to do next.
Yeah.
With someone else.
And then it all kind of falls apart, and Christoph, he gets a pretty gooey death. But yeah, he's always great. And it's funny that he was in a Frankenstein and a Dracula movie within like months of each other, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Favorite scene for you, Parker? What are you going for?
Oh, it has to be the creature coming, like the creation of the creature, like not the putting him together, which I do love that, but it's the whole, like, you know, the iconic lightning striking and all of just the imagery of those batteries and the design of the creature with the helmet and the chest piece and just the colors and lights and everything, and just the rain, which is always an added element to these movies. It's like, it's always got to be raining. We got to have that dramatic, the dramatic rain, but it's iconic. I mean, it's iconic to the story of Frankenstein, but I think Del Toro, he does enough to make it unique instead of it just being the same, you know, thing as the classics that have come before it.
Absolutely. Directing score, though, for you, what are you going for?
I love Del Toro as much as I love Mel Brooks, and I think Del Toro as a director, he hits it pretty much every time. I think there's maybe one or two movies that he's done where I can't give him a perfect score, but this is one of them where I am 100% giving him a 10.
Nice. Bringing out the 10s. Yeah, I love this film a lot. What's interesting as well is that this is made with Netflix money, essentially, and Netflix films have always been associated with the fact that, there's always this kind of Netflix sheen on it. I definitely did not get that with this at all. Like, because some people say that all Netflix films kind of look the same. I'm like, there's no way you can put this film in that category at all.
No.
With such a great director like that. Again, like, I just love this sort of, because you have this great sort of Northern Lights green tinge in that opening scene, but you feel like that's in some ways it's always kind of there with Frankenstein in a lot of the scenes that he's in, especially in the laboratory scene. Yeah, just the cinematography as well is just amazing. Everything's just judged really well. Everything just comes together. A few things, just the CGI stuff and just that choice to go into the creature's body, I could have done without that. I don't think it's necessary. You don't need that. I just think it's using technology for technology's sake. It's like, we can go into the body. I'm like, you don't need it for me. So yeah, I'll go like a 9.5. Right, lines. There's a bunch as well.
Oh yes.
But they're just, I don't know whether these are just, some of these are coming straight from the book. I don't know, but they're just beautifully written, some of these. What manner of creature is that? What manner of devil made him? I did.
It's a great one.
Ivory does not bleed, Victor. Flesh does. From Victor's father.
You only ever listen when I'm hurting you or when I hurt you. That's a great line. I love it because it's so true that Victor literally does not listen to anything the creature says unless the creature is causing physical pain.
Yes.
And I just love that line because it's so calming. It's like he's not yelling at him. He's just like, why is it you only listen when I hurt you?
Absolutely. Release now, please. Please always helps. And it's kind of great that kind of line comes back with Christoph Waltz when he says that in desperation mode, trying to just use that kind of joke again to get him on side in such a desperate manner is great. Again, some of these beautiful lines from Christoph Waltz. Can you contain your fire, Prometheus, or are you going to burn your hands before delivering it? Fantastic. One really funny one from Christoph Waltz when he's trying his pursuits in photography and trying to work with bad models, and it's revealed she ate the peach, and it's like, you're eating the peaches. It's great. Such frustration from him. Again, another beautiful one. Like the game of chess we play only against ourselves, with many coughs of blood in between that from Victor Frankenstein.
The creature has one that it's very poignant to being a parent, and that is, you gave me life unwanted. I gave it back to you. You thought me a monster. Now I return the favor, which is ultimately like, when you have children, like, your children didn't ask to be born. They didn't ask to be created. So your job is to teach them and kind of help them survive into the world instead of being, their quote unquote owner or master in some sort of way, which is ultimately what Victor is to the creature. He tries to be his master instead of his parent, to try ultimately Victor creates the creature to prove that he can do it and then destroy his work, destroy, the evidence of what he can do, because he doesn't want this creature to live like a person.
No. He ends up seeing him as an abomination in a way, and just can't believe what he's created. I never considered what came after creation, and having reached the edge of the earth, there was no horizon left. Another great one.
I need you to make a companion for me, one like me. A companion. I see another monster. Yes, we can be monsters together.
Excellent. Yeah. You really feel his pain there. It's just like,
yes,
come on, help this guy out. Make him a companion. Won't take that long. I have found sanity at such a cost, and you here are the madness calling me back. Yeah, again, I cannot die. I cannot live alone. If you are not to award me love, then I will indulge in rage. Yeah, perhaps, Father, we can be human. In that last scene. Ugh.
Yeah.
Nearly cried in that moment.
Elizabeth has a lot of great lines that are very touching. Of course, one of them that she says to Victor is, "In those eyes I saw pain. And what is pain if not evidence of intelligence?"
Yeah, I mean that definitely just gets to the heart of what that character is all about that we've already talked about for sure. But I think me being me, my favorite line is a funny one, and it's from Christoph Waltz where he says, "French porcelain chimes a man's stream." While he's going for a piss.
Yes.
Screenplay score, Parker, what are you going for?
I am going to score this pretty high. I probably won't give it a 10, but I think the screenplay with some minor adjustments could have been a perfect screenplay, but it's still going to be a high one for me. I'm going to give it a 9. I'm going to say a 9.5. It's Del Toro's perfect touch with, of course, his love for this story, period, just oozes into his screenplay. So this is very much Mary Shelley's work mixed in with Del Toro's screenwriting. And I think it's a perfect combo. Like I said, with some minor, like I don't know, making the wolf situation a little bit better, I think would have been something I would have tweaked. Maybe shaving off a little bit of like the creature's journey to the farmhouse instead of it being kind of as long as it is, but it's so minor. So a 9.5, I think is a perfect score for this.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only real gripe I have with the script is just, as I said, that little bit of clunkiness when it's just announced we're going to see, the creature's story in that title card. Other than that, it's really, really strong, and I just love the commitment to showing the creature's development into a genuine person that feels very believable. The balance there with giving that character enough time to actually see that development is really good, and yet Victor is still very central to this story, and we don't leave him for too long, and your feelings about this character really fluctuate as the film goes on. And I've seen this 3 times now, and I think it just gets better every time. So yeah, is it better than the directing? I don't know. So I'll go like a 9.2, just because. Yeah, I think the film it needed a little bit of work just to get back on track after just that title card a little bit with The Creature's Tale. But other than that, it's pretty perfect. Favorite performance, though, for you, Parker?
Oh, man, it's tough because I think there's 3 performances that are pretty close together, and it's our 3 like mostly main characters between Victor, Elizabeth, and the creature. I'm going to give it to Jacob Elordi as the creature because I think he does something that no other actor who has played the creature has done before, and he's been able to perfectly portray this creature from its creation to its end, and kind of give us a different performance every time, and they're all so close to being perfect. Like, you're watching this child grow up and become the man that Victor never could be. I'm not super familiar with Jacob Elordi. I knew he was in things before this, and I don't think I had seen him. This may be my first movie I'd actually watched him in. And going forward, I'm like, man, this guy he is able to emote so much emotion behind so much makeup and so much prosthetics. It's just, when you can do that, I'd say you're a damn good actor.
Yeah. So you buy a new ticket for Wuthering Heights?
Yeah, probably not. not my thing.
Yeah, I'm going with Oscar Isaac, actually, because obviously both these characters are like going in a way different trajectories in terms of being innocent characters to being a monster, whereas it's just really well done with Oscar Isaac as well. In both are like done in real great subtle ways, and yes, like Jacob Elordi has a really difficult task to really show kind of that opposite journey for him. But with Oscar Isaac, he in a way has a tougher job because he has to give you glimpses of his humanity as well as transitioning into a genuine, the true, and show you that he is the true monster of this tale. And he just has a great job of portraying his own rage, portraying his own coldness throughout this film, portraying his own confusion and dismay to a lot of these other characters that just don't share his mentality, and mixing that with his own egotistical ways of going about science. And yeah, he's incredible. Yeah, Oscar Isaac for me. Acting score for you, Parker?
I can't grade this super low. I think that it's there. Everyone in this movie just does their part perfectly. I hate to say perfectly and not give it a 10 because I don't want to give it a 10 because I just don't feel there may be a couple performances that are just kind of like, they're there. They're kind of there. Like William, I think does a fine job, but he's just so kind of put in the background that you forget that he exists. Like he's one of those characters that just kind of comes in and you're just like, oh yeah, this is William Frankenstein. Like he's the brother. Like, and he has like a couple great lines, especially when he's confronting his brother and calling him a monster. But he's kind of just forgot about like the crew of the ship, like the captain, he's fine.
Yeah.
So I think just with those two performances kind of not really living up to the rest of it, I'll have to give it a 9.
Straight 9, yeah.
Straight 9.
Yeah, I totally agree that all kind of the bit parts here, they're fine. You know, they're not. They don't have anything that's like, oh yeah, that small part was amazing because he did this really amazing thing in this scene with Oscar Isaac or Jacob Elordi. You know, they're all there to just complement these characters. So I guess with that, it's a bit of a shame. But yeah, Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi and Maya Goth as well are on top of their game. I guess Maya Goth maybe isn't at the level as the two leads, maybe, but it's still really, really strong. So I will go like a 9.2 as well. Right, let's add up the scores then for Frankenstein. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Make a distinction there. Frankenstein gets a very, very impressive 56.4. Yoink.
Oh.
That's pretty good. And wins this episode. Whereas young Frankenstein gets 55.5. I am in trouble with the other half.
You brought a great movie to the fold where I was like, I wanted to, of course you want your movie to win, but when you bring in one of my favorite movies of last year, which I gave a 10, it's hard to kind of look past those things. But hey, congratulations. I'll take the loss with great pride.
Yeah, Parker, Dissect That Film goes to 3-2 on the League of Podcasts. Next episode, as the drama is out, the new film starring Robert Pattinson and Zendaya, we'll be focusing our attentions to Zendaya's films, as we've already done a episode on Mr. Pattinson. And we'll have guests from the Underrated podcast, a debutant to the show, which will be fantastic. Do check that one out. Parker, again, you've been amazing as always. This is your opportunity to tell us about your podcast, and where can we find you, sir?
So I am 1/3 of the Dissect That Film podcast, a podcast that breaks down the plots of the good, the bad, and the ugly of cinema. And I am also 1/4 of another podcast called The Monster Zone, which is a podcast where we spin a wheel and land on a monster movie and talk about it. And it's great fun because I am kind of the newbie to the monster genre when it comes to like the wide world of monster movies. So it's a great show to be a part of. And if you want to find us, you just type in Dissect That Film wherever, like on social media, YouTube, your favorite podcast app, or just go to Google and just type in Dissect That Film. You're going to find us somehow. But yeah, thank you so much for having me back. It's always fun to kind of feel like I'm smart about talking about movies. This is definitely the show to do it. So thank you again for having me.
That's all right. You always sound smart to me, dude. That's fine.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Especially, I mean, you're wearing a Jaws hat, so
I'm wearing a Jaws hat, and I felt like it was important to wear a Frankenstein shirt to a Frankenstein episode.
Excellent. Yeah, if you want to talk Jaws, Parker is your man for sure.
Absolutely.
Right, it's time to say goodbye, people. It is goodbye from Parker. Bye-bye, sir.
Bye-bye, everybody.
And it is goodbye from me. I'm going to avoid anyone that is called Abby and normal. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. That's it for part 2. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 1 if you haven't done so already. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.